Why another Lufthansa First Class report now? Quite simply because airline products are constantly evolving. Today passengers can compare much more directly, and it's clear where an airline excels and where it needs to improve. My flight from Sao Paulo to Frankfurt showcases Lufthansa First Class just before its 100th anniversary, which was chosen as a date for a change to its soft product, catering and wine selection. That's precisely why this report is so interesting. It clearly illustrates why Lufthansa needed to make improvements in this area. Regardless, one constant remains, and that's just how special the Boeing 747 itself is. The Lufthansa First Class cabin below and in front of the cockpit feels almost like a small lounge above the clouds, and the absence of floor-to-ceiling doors or walls is part of its unique appeal. This open feeling of space is what makes it so unique to this day. And even after the introduction of Allegris, that won't change, at least not initially, in the nose of the jumbo jet. Seat 1A on the Boeing 747-8, one of the rarest and most outstanding seats in civil aviation. Hello everybody to this new first class report. Here we are on Lufthansa's Boeing 747-8 in their first class, and on this very iconic seat and a very iconic aircraft we're going through the night from Sao Paulo to Frankfurt. Out of quite a few options within this airline even, I've decided for this iconic plane and this very iconic seat, because only from here you get a very special perspective out of the plane. Welcome to the Plane Insider. I'm Chris from Travel Sing Fly. Here you'll explore the world's airlines up close, from economy to business and first class, filmed live on board, authentic and full of detail. You'll also discover stunning destinations across all continents and learn how to make premium travel possible through miles, points and insider know-how built over 25 years of experience. Honest, inspiring and entertaining. It's your inside view into aviation and travel. This is the Plane Insider by Travel Sing Fly. Subscribe now and let's fly. After an extremely friendly welcome, a small bowl of macadamia nuts and a glass of champagne were served along with some water. Beneath the iconic red rose of Lufthansa First Class, a very nice amenity kit was also waiting. The seats are quite a few years old already, but still very comfortable and in good condition. Plus, there's 4 windows per seat, because the seats are not nested together and your legs don't have to go under the seat in front when you sleep. Shortly after, the softest slippers in the world arrived, and finally, depending on individual size, pajamas by the German company Van Laak. In addition, each guest received a voucher for internet access. Things were really busy at the beginning, so the time until pushback for takeoff really flew by.
Cell phones and tablets may be used in flight mode. During taxi, takeoff and landing, electronic devices must not be connected to the power supply. Please note that power banks and e-cigarettes must not be stored in the overhead compartment. They should always remain in the area of your seat. And we're taxiing already to takeoff. Well, the ground experience was actually pretty nice. Once I arrived at the check-in counter, I didn't have any luggage to check in. Good to know, Lufthansa is among the airlines with the most generous baggage allowances in first class. While many Asian airlines like Emirates or Singapore Airlines only allow 50 kilograms, Lufthansa First Class passengers can take 3 pieces of luggage weighing up to 32 kilograms each, plus 2 pieces of hand luggage and a personal item. That adds up to well over 110 kilograms for just one passenger. And I could easily have taken the whole collection of suitcases, but why did I travel the long distance from Brazil to Frankfurt only with hand luggage? Or even more, I covered 28,000 kilometers across 3 continents in 6 days. During this hectic week, I wanted to avoid any baggage risk and waiting for luggage, so only hand luggage. This worked out very well thanks to my highly efficient and extremely spacious Voyager carry-on suitcase and the Atlas backpack, both from level 8. The entire trip was actually possible without having to do laundry along the way, and all this with clothes for winter in New York and summer in Rio. I started with Emirates Premium Economy Class from Milan to New York, then American Airlines First Class from New York to Buenos Aires. From there, British Airways Premium Economy to Rio de Janeiro,
Heathrow and 40 hours later with GOL Airlines from Rio to Sao Paulo and now back to Europe in Lufthansa First Class. The economy flight with GOL from Rio to Sao Paulo was the bottleneck of this trip, but at least they allowed 10 kilograms of hand luggage. Since the Voyager carry-on not only looks stylish and probably has the best wheels on the market, but also utilizes every allowed cubic centimeter of volume inside and the handle is integrated into the frame, it held so much that it was perfect even for this trip. Of course, one personal item was also allowed without any weight limits, and that was my incredibly robust Atlas backpack. If you're interested, check out the video description. Here you'll find a link and discount code for all items and accessories from level 8 for truly high quality and practical luggage. The staff just asked me right away if I would like to be escorted to the lounge, and that included going very fast through security and also through passport control, so that was really very good. The lounge was nice. Here's a few pictures of it, and after that I got escorted to the plane as well. The Safra lounge in Sao Paulo is privately owned by the banking family of the same name. It's not only large but also tastefully furnished, offering numerous hot and cold dishes, wines, soft drinks, acai ice cream and showers. And something I've never experienced before, a gift bag. During my visit it contained face cream and serum. Wow! Right on schedule, the Lufthansa representative picked me up from the lounge, we took a souvenir photo and then it was off to the jumbo jet. For a long time, Lufthansa's fleet had all the same seats throughout the fleet, and that changed after Allegris was introduced. The new Allegris cabin, especially for business class and first class, is very different from the business and first class before that, including this one here. The new first class of Lufthansa Allegris has the fully closing suites, but only 4 seats per plane. Before we really get started, let's talk about how did I book and what did it cost. Now here we need to elaborate a bit today. The Lufthansa First Class flight from Sao Paulo to Frankfurt costs around 9,600 euros one way. Currently it's even 11,900 euros. Round trip fares range from an enormous 10,500 to 15,800 euros. I booked my flight with miles, taking advantage of a special rule that exists only in Brazil. It's currently the only country in the world that prohibits airline surcharges on award tickets. As a result, the additional costs on top of the miles are only about 10 euros, in contrast to the currently unbelievable 1,300 euros from North America, and that's on top of a huge number of miles. I booked before the system changeover in June 2025 for 110,000 miles and more miles and 10 euros. The whole thing wasn't without drama though. I was originally supposed to be there months earlier, but all on the runway, an airport closure and other circumstances cancelled my flight. Thanks to my years of experience with miles and points, I still managed to get home cheaply and in a completely different way. But that's enough material for a separate report. This seat over here is not only the first class seat on the Boeing 747-8, but on the whole older fleet of Lufthansa. So that's the Airbus A380, Airbus A340 that will stop service very soon. Then of course here on the Boeing 747-8. And the new Airbus A350s have the new Allegris cabin. So that's the new Allegris business class, the new Allegris first class with totally enclosed first class suites where the doors close from up till down. However, the Allegris First Class is also supposed to find its way onto the Boeing 747-8 in the future. So anyway, once you get a chance to sit on the very front of this Boeing 747, you should really try to do it. You're gonna be in the very front, under and in front of the cockpit, and that is really a very special thing. The new Lufthansa Allegris First Class is already flying, as seen here in the identical Swiss Senses First Class. It's currently only available on some A350s. Next, the focus shifts to the 747. In contrast, on the A380, Lufthansa will only be renewing the business class cabin. Things are getting particularly interesting with the Boeing 747. Lufthansa has confirmed that the Allegris refurbishment will begin with 2 phases in 2026, starting with the main deck, while the nose and the upper deck will have to wait. The new first class cabin won't arrive immediately, but rather in a later phase along with the upper deck. Until then, the 2 special areas in the jumbo jet will likely remain untouched. Afterwards, Allegris First Class will probably be specially adapted and moved into the nose. On the one hand, exclusive and consistent, but on the other hand, this will likely mean losing the open, almost lounge-like atmosphere that makes the current Lufthansa First Class on the 747 so special. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments. After takeoff, the service began with a small wet towel with a rose petal and a second glass of champagne, and shortly after a small hors d'oeuvre arrived. Then we'll take a look at the Amenity Kit, filmed the next morning before landing, because then the lighting conditions were so much better. The Lufthansa First Class Amenity Kit on this flight was a chic, sturdy blue pouch filled with socks, a sleep mask, a hand mirror, toothbrush, toothpaste, earplugs, a shoehorn, a face mask and moisturizers from the German luxury cosmetics brands Augustinus Bader. Overall, a very nice and appropriate kit. We are already on our cruising altitude, and yet I'm still having the seatbelt on because South America to Europe is famous for very strong turbulences, and this flight is a very good example for that. Anyway, now let's have a look at the menu and the wine list, because that's something about Lufthansa First Class that I find sometimes the really weak spot. So when we have a look at the wine list on this flight, maybe 1 or 2 bottles could be on a good first class flight, but only like as an extra wines, just to show some new undiscovered wines, but not as the proper first class wine selection, because they're very, very normal wines. And I start with the champagne. That's a 2015 vintage brut of T&O. So that's a champagne that you could present as a discovery, but not as the first-class champagne, because for that you have to have a world-class top champagne, maybe around 200 euros a bottle, because the price for this flight is 9,600 euros in first class, and you should not have a very regular champagne on that kind of flight. And also when it comes to the white and red wines, there's 4 red wines, 4 white wines, and none of them are really outstanding, and that is very sad. And when it comes to the rest, it's rather regular spirits. There's no cocktails on this first class, on Lufthansa First Class in general. There is, however, proper coffee, cappuccino, tea, and so forth. The biggest change on the drinks menu is likely to be with champagne. While the selection of wines has varied wildly in recent years, Lufthansa has now secured the vintage champagne La Grande Dame from Veuve Clicquot, and there's also an alternative champagne. Currently it's Bollinger La Grande Année 2015, which I recently saw also on Singapore Airlines First Class. The quality of other wines also seems to be improving, and now there's also a small list of long drinks and cocktails, which could still be expanded compared to the competition. And now let's also have a look at the food menu on this flight, also on this very nice menu card. It started already with an amuse-bouche that I haven't managed to eat yet. That is prawn mango ceviche, and then there's 4 different kinds of appetizers and the famous Lufthansa First Class Caviar Service. So that's nice, and the appetizers are ham or lobster or something vegetarian and salad. Then there's some soup, and then there's 4 different kinds of main courses to choose from. That's lamb, fish, duck
and a vegetarian dish. And then there's desserts and especially very nice cheese here. They are very known for very good cheese, and you can choose from all kinds of cheeses here from the trolley. Then for breakfast there's also quite a big selection of options. So there's also muesli and fruits, but also their very famous scrambled eggs, which they prepare here by hand.
Dining in Lufthansa First Class begins with Caviar Service. Hardly any other detail embodies the image of classic luxury of grand voyages so much, and here too there are significant differences between airlines. While some airlines offer the luxury product in a small open jar, Lufthansa is celebrating it with personalized service from a trolley. For many years, Lufthansa was known for being one of the world's largest caviar customers. In 2023 alone, Lufthansa served more than 24,100 gram tins in its first class. To this day, the caviar is served in the classic style with lemon in a tulle bag, chopped egg, shallots and creme fraiche. Currently, it comes exclusively from Kaluga Queen in China. The airline does not publicly disclose the exact variety. Visually, on my flight, it resembled berry caviar, completely black with small grains. Even after the recent service changes, the elaborate caviar service will remain, except that blinis will now be offered alongside toast, and a mother of pearl spoon will also be provided.
Ja,
Es geht weiter.
danke Ihnen herzlich.
Ja, wir sind ja schon bestellt.
Genau. The main course has arrived already and it tastes really quite good. I also got some red wine, actually two different kinds of red wine, and they're both quite nice, I have to say. Anyway, now a few words about service here. I mean, in the past few years that I'm running this channel, I've seen that Lufthansa does actually more or less everything right when it comes to service, especially in first class. Some airlines seem to hire by the looks or by youth. Some airlines seem to hire people with a very ambivalent feeling about service and interaction. And here at Lufthansa it's really very, very special, because here I feel treated very well as a customer. I also have the feeling that they really know what to do in a moment of emergency. Also, they really know about the plane, they're worldly people, they can talk about things, so that is really very nice. They know how to interact with the customer. You can have a really nice and decent conversation with them that is also very interesting. And in that respect, Lufthansa does something really very well when it comes to service and hiring the right people. It's such a joy. And for example, I just flew on American Airlines first class, and unfortunately I have to say that there it was the total opposite. The overall tone of conversation throughout the cabins, throughout the plane, economy, business class, first class, was rather indifferent, unpersonal, sometimes even unfriendly, I must say, and that was really very sad to see. An airline that kind of lost its pride, and something I don't want to experience another time.
Shortly after this flight, on the occasion of its 100th anniversary, the airline made some changes to its overall catering service. Fox is the name of the new concept for a reimagined catering experience, which will apply to all classes. In first class, the menu on flights departing from Germany will be designed by a Michelin star chef. Appetizers and desserts are now served in trilogies, although previously there were already 3 appetizers served simultaneously. Still, it seems that a breath of fresh air is blowing through the house, especially regarding appetizers and desserts, and that's really good news. However, first impressions from viewers who have already experienced the new Fox soft product are quite mixed, ranging from moderately positive to considerable disappointment, especially regarding the food. Here are a few photos from a long-time loyal follower of the channel who experienced the full Fox product on his flight from Mexico City to Frankfurt in April 2026. According to him, the upgrade to the drinks was noticeable, but the food was unfortunately below average in taste.
I'm finishing dinner now with the cheese plate over here, along with some fortified Moscatel dessert wine, so that's gonna be quite interesting, I would say, quite nice. One thing I remember from other times on Lufthansa First Class is that the ingredients, the main ingredients, are mostly really good, but then the side dishes are not so great, and I really wonder why that is. Like, they have a lot of marinated vegetables with it and onions and something I never eat in Germany. Very strange. Has nothing to do actually with German cuisine, because we have quite good cuisine actually. And opposite to the cliche, I know. But we do have very nice cuisine actually. And here the side dishes have nothing to do with German cuisine and also not with other good cuisine. And then what I just learned is that the cheese platter comes always from the origin, actually from the departure airport. So in this case, not from Germany, but from Sao Paulo. So it was not the very, very beautiful cheese trolley that they have when they when they start in Germany, but something else here, which is okay. Anyway, I was just on American Airlines flagship first class, and there they announced a luxury cheese platter on their menu. But what it really was 3 pieces of cheese that really tasted like from the lower shelf in a discounter. And here it's so much better. Good morning from the plane. After a few hours of resting, I just got woken up by the flight attendant. She asked if I would like to have breakfast, and then I also have some time to use the bathroom before, just to freshen up. Lying down here is really very nice because the bed is comfortable and it's very wide, you see. And there's no restriction for the legs, nothing for the arms, so turning around is without problems at all. So that is really a very nice bed on this old seat. Quite nice. So I went to the lavatory just to freshen up a little, and in the meantime the bed just disappeared magically. The table was set, the seat was put in this position here, and they served very nice breakfast here with a power bowl, so there's yogurt and fruits and muesli and granola. Then they have nice all kinds of bread here, a fresh warm brioche, but also all kinds of other German breads, you know. Then some smoothie, orange juice, cappuccino, salmon, fruits, and they're just now preparing some freshly made scrambled eggs. You can also have freshly prepared bacon, and I will not have bacon because I have salmon anyway, and there's enough reasons to not eat too much. What is also really special about this seat here in the nose of the jumbo jet, in front of the cockpit actually, is not only the shape of the cabin, but also the silence. You don't hear the jets, you don't hear the engines. What you hear is only the wind, because of course we are banging against the air outside, like really hard. But when we take off, there's only the sound of the fuselage, of the wheels. Once the wheels are in, there's no sound. Very, very interesting. Really nice. And good to know about first class here is also that first class will not protect you from turbulences. We had what the South Atlantic is very famous for, and also crossing the equator over the Atlantic, turbulences, and they were really, really severe and very strong throughout the flight actually, until we reached the European continent. Lufthansa First Class on the Boeing 747-8 was actually the second report of all time on my channel, Travels in Fly. Today it's the Plane Insider. So back then I also had a great experience with the crew, very friendly but also personalities, so that is really very nice too. You don't have the feeling there's just some exchangeable person, but somebody who's really your host and wants you to feel well, but from a human perspective. And after quite some experience now over the years traveling on business and first class with very open eyes, that's something that Lufthansa crews are really very good at. After 11 hours of flight, we are descending into Frankfurt airport. Now, how was this flight? Well, this is one of those moments that are really kind of sad when you arrive to an airport, because this here was quite an experience. It was overall a really good experience, with a few exceptions. I will talk about them now. First of all, the seat. I mean, it's of course an old seat, an old-fashioned seat, but you get quite some privacy actually once you put up the partition here. Then that is really quite nice, especially when you're in the first row, because then you don't see the others and the others don't see you. So that is really nice, and it really makes up, I mean, this very special place here in the nose of the jumbo jet really makes up for not having a private suite. I would prefer this over a rather regular, boring private suite, but I'm also a real av geek, really fascinated by planes and aviation. Then when it comes to the staff, there's not many airlines in the world that manage this combination of professionalism, great service, mindfulness, and personality. There's real personalities working here. They really know about the job, they love the job, and they know everything about it. And you have the feeling you have a real nice human communication from one to another human being. And that's what many airlines don't have. It all looks very perfect, but most of them just act after a rule book, and it's totally interchangeable or exchangeable, and here not. So that is really something that is a total strength of Lufthansa crew, and that should not be underestimated. When it comes to food and beverages, however, there's a kind of space for improvement. The food has good ingredients, but the preparation is not always fantastic, and especially the wine list. Many of the wines had nothing to do in first class, I think. That is my opinion. They could be discovery wines, but not the first class wines. When the ticket is 9,600 euros, like in this case, you should really get fantastic wines, top world class wines, and not something you get in a better supermarket. But overall, a really nice experience, very special. Flying on the Boeing 747 in the nose is something you will not be able to do in, let's say, 20 years from now, because there won't be any more 747s flying with passengers. And that's only Lufthansa, Korean Air and Air China that really do it at the moment. Lufthansa with by far the biggest fleet of 747s. So if you can do it, do it. It's a very nice experience.
What almost no other airline in the world offers in first class comes after disembarking. If the aircraft is parked at a remote stand, you are driven from the plane to the terminal by limousine, and we had a fantastically beautiful icy winter day for it. If you're flying from Frankfurt and checking in at the separate first class terminal, you will always be chauffeured across the tarmac to the aircraft.
And here we've landed at Frankfurt International Airport, from warm summer in Brazil to a frosty cold winter in Germany. Out an interesting flight on this iconic plane, on this also very iconic seat. I hope you really enjoyed watching this report. If yes, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, that's really important, and give me all your comments.
There's much more behind each of my videos than meets the eye. Nothing is produced quickly or haphazardly here. That's why this channel is different. Every shot, every edit, every piece of research is done by hand with a lot of time, passion and attention to detail. If you appreciate this, then please subscribe to the channel right now. And if you would like to support me further, leave me a super thank or buy me a coffee or two with a little link on the screen. This will help me continue producing honest, independent airline reports and travel videos. Thank you so much for being part of this, because without you, much of this would not be possible.
And another really interesting report would be this one over here. Check it out right away. I'm Chris. Thank you for watching.